The world went silent. 28-year-old Kira Davenport pressed her cheek against the stock of the Barrett M107. Through the scope, 2,400 yards downrange, a steel target
Here you
shimmered
go.
in the Virginia heat.
Thanks. Looks good.
At that distance, it looked
Need anything
smaller
else?
than her
We're
thumbnail
good for now.
held at arm's length. Wind flags along the range told conflicting stories. Gusting east, then southeast, then back again. 12 miles per hour, maybe 15. The kind of conditions that made even experienced
too
shooters
risky.
pack up
We have
and
it
go
under
home.
control.
Your control
Temperature
got us
had
killed
dropped
last
3
time.
degrees in the last 10 minutes as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. That changed air density, changed everything. Her finger rested beside the trigger. Not on it, not yet. 30 Navy SEALs stood behind her in absolute silence. Some with their own spotting scopes, others with phone cameras recording, all of them waiting to see if the impossible was about to happen, or if this unknown woman was about to embarrass herself in front of the most elite shooting community in America. Bridge Hawthorne stood closest. 46 years old, built like a man carved from granite in bad decisions. The current record holder at 2,380 yards. A shot he'd made in Kandahar in 2014 that had killed a Taliban commander and entered SEAL legend. He'd been certain she would fail, right up until her first 2 shots. 1,000 yards, dead center, twice. 1,500 yards, perfect again. Now this. The shot that would either break his decade-long record or prove those earlier hits were luck. Kira watched the flags, timing the gusts, looking for the pattern. Everything her father had taught her condensed into this moment. Every hour on the range, every lesson about patience, every reminder that shooting was meditation disguised as violence. The wind flags relaxed. Not still, never still, but steady enough. She moved her finger onto the trigger, started her exhale, found the space between heartbeats where the body went perfectly still, and squeezed. The Barrett roared. 50 caliber fury compressed into a fraction of a second. The suppressor tamed the blast, but nothing could hide the concussive force that rippled across the range like a shockwave. Kira rode the recoil, returned to the scope. The bullet would be in flight for nearly 4 seconds. 4 seconds of wondering if she'd read the wind correctly, if her calculations were right, if 5 years away from competition shooting had dulled her edge past recovery. 4 seconds that felt like drowning. Then the sound reached them. A clear, unmistakable clang of metal striking metal. The tone that meant center mass. The sound that meant everything. The range exploded into chaos. SEALs shouting. Someone threw their hat in the air. Phone cameras swiveling to catch her face. Bridge Hawthorne stood frozen, his expression cycling through disbelief, shock, and something that might have been respect. He walked over slowly, extended his hand. "Who the hell are you?" Kira stood, 5'5" in boots, auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing her father's old field jacket that still smelled like gun oil and pipe tobacco. She shook his hand. "Kira Davenport. My father was Colonel Thaddeus Davenport. They called him Phantom." The color drained from Bridge's face like someone had opened a valve. "You're Phantom's kid?" "I'm Phantom's daughter." 48 hours earlier, Kira's biggest problem had been making rent. The Anchor Bar sat 3 blocks from the Naval Special Warfare compound in Virginia Beach. The kind of place where the floor was sticky, the beer was cheap, and nobody asked questions they didn't want answered. Kira had been working there Friday nights for 6 months. Her third job, on top of teaching American history at Richmond High School, and weekend tutoring sessions for kids whose parents could afford $20 an hour. The math was brutal. 3 jobs barely covered a 2-bedroom rental and her sister Ainsley's expenses. College savings, retirement, those were luxuries for people who didn't live paycheck to paycheck. She wiped down the same section of bar for the 3rd time, 11:15 on a Friday night. Her shift had started at 4. Her feet ached. Her back ached. 28 felt like 68 after 9 hours of standing. The crowd was thick with SEALs, fresh off deployment, still carrying the tension of wherever they'd been. drinking like men trying to forget things that soap and water couldn't wash away. Bridge Hawthorne held court at the corner table. She'd seen him before. Hard to miss. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of scars that came from doing things most people only saw in movies. His voice carried across the room with the easy confidence of someone who'd earned every syllable. 2,380 yards, he was saying. Kandahar, summer of 14. Temperature was 115, wind gusting to 20. I had to account for heat shimmer, mirage, the whole 9 yards. He paused, took a drink, let the moment build. Headshot on a Taliban commander who thought he was safe behind a ridgeline. One shot, still unbeaten in SEAL history. His table erupted in approval, glasses raised. Someone called him Reaper. Someone else said something about God-tier shooting. Kira felt the words bubble up before she could stop them. My father shot farther. The table went quiet. Then every head turned. Bridge's eyes found her, narrowed slightly. Say again, sweetheart. The endearment landed like a slap, deliberate, designed to put her in her place. Kira set down her rag. Every instinct screamed to back down. Apologize. Go back to being invisible. A single woman with 3 jobs who couldn't afford to piss off paying customers. But something else rose up. Something that sounded like her father's voice from 15 years ago. Don't ever let them make you small, Kira. Not for anyone. She spoke louder, clearer. My father, 2,520 yards, Afghanistan, Operation Anaconda, March 2002. The entire bar went silent. 30-some veterans and operators staring at the bartender with tired eyes and a ponytail. The woman who smelled like beer and cleaning solution, and who definitely didn't look like someone who knew the first thing about precision shooting. Bridge stood, walked to the bar, leaned against it with deliberate slowness. Little lady, do you even know what 2,500 yards looks like? That's over a mile. That's farther than most people can see clearly without magnification. I know exactly what it looks like. And who was this father, Mr. 2520? Colonel Thaddeus Davenport, Rangers, then Special Forces, call sign Phantom. The reaction was immediate. One of the older SEALs, a man in his 70s with gray hair and a face like weathered leather, let out a low whistle. Phantom Davenport. Jesus, I thought that was a ghost story. He was real, Kira said, and everything they say about him is true. Bridge studied her face, looking for tells, looking for the lie. His expression shifted when he didn't find one. Phantom Davenport was your old man? Yes. And he taught you to shoot? From age 12 until he died 5 years ago. Bridge pulled back slightly, reassessing, recalculating. Prove it. He gestured around the bar. Tomorrow morning, 0800, Virginia Beach Long Range Precision Complex. You make one clean shot at 1,000 yards in front of witnesses, and I'll apologize and buy you the nicest dinner in Virginia Beach. He paused, smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. But if you can actually break my record, 2,400 yards or better, I'll give you $50,000 cash and buy this whole bar, make you a business owner. The offer hung in the air. $50,000, more than Kira made in a year from all 3 jobs combined. Enough to fix the transmission in her car. Enough to buy Ainsley's textbooks for college without taking out loans. Enough to breathe for the first time in years. But it also meant shooting in front of professionals who would know immediately if she was full of it. Shooting after 5 years of deliberately staying away from ranges, 5 years of trying to forget Afghanistan and friendly fire, and the things that still woke her up at 3 a.m. with her heart pounding. Bridge extended his hand across the bar. What do you say? Kira thought about the metal box in her storage unit, the one she'd been too scared to open since her father's funeral. The letter inside that started with, "When you're ready." Maybe she was ready. Deal. His handshake was firm, calloused. the grip of someone who'd spent decades doing hard things. 0800, don't be late. The drive to West Virginia took 4 hours. Kira left Virginia Beach just after midnight, her Honda Civic coughing and rattling over back roads that wound into the Blue Ridge Mountains. The cabin sat in a hollow surrounded by oak and pine, isolated, accessible only by a gravel road that turned to soup when it rained. She hadn't been back since the funeral. 5 years of avoidance. 5 years of pretending that not thinking about something made it go away. 5 years of being wrong about almost everything. Her headlights caught the structure at 2 in the morning. Small, single-story, dark windows like closed eyes. The workshop beside it leaned slightly to one side, door hanging open, creaking in the wind. Kira killed the engine, sat in silence. Mountain sounds filled the void. Crickets, an owl somewhere distant. Wind moving through branches with a sound like breathing. She forced herself out of the car. The front door key was under the third stone on the left side of the porch, exactly where it had always been. The lock resisted, then yielded with a click that sounded like surrender. Inside, smell hit first. Dust, old wood, the ghost of pipe tobacco. Her father used to smoke on winter evenings while reading Jack London, telling her stories about mountains and survival, and what it meant to be strong when everything tried to make you weak. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Furniture under sheets, kitchen frozen in time, a coffee cup in the sink from the morning he died, his reading chair by the window, books still open on the side table. Call of the Wild. He'd been reading it the week his heart supposedly gave out. Kira moved through darkness by memory, through the kitchen where he taught her to clean rifles, past the bedroom that had been hers from 19 to 24, when her world collapsed and he'd rebuilt it piece by piece. Down the stairs to the basement. Thaddeus had built a 100-foot shooting range down here. Reinforced concrete walls, professional ventilation, target system at one end, shooting bench and gun safe at the other. The safe opened to her father's birthday combined with hers. 0328, 1996. The rifles were still there, pristine, oiled, maintained in abandonment like he'd known someone would return eventually. M40A5, custom Remington 700 with a stock he'd carved from walnut cherrywood, Chi-Tac intervention. And beside them, dozens of spiral-bound notebooks filled with his handwriting. Wind calculations, elevation tables, ballistic coefficients. 50 years of learning compressed into paper. A loose page fell out when she opened one. Her name at the top, crossed out, started again. Kira, if you're reading this, you finally came back. Good, that means you're ready. Remember what I taught you. Shooting isn't about the gun. It's about understanding invisible forces. Wind, gravity, time, distance. The space between intention and result. You're better than I ever was. Don't let anyone tell you different, especially yourself. The boxes under the workbench. Third floorboard from the left wall. You'll know what to do. Love always, Dad. Kira's hands shook as she read it, then read it again. She hadn't cried at his funeral. Hadn't cried when the medical examiner said cardiac arrest was common in men his age. Hadn't cried when she sold his truck and closed his accounts and pretended everything was normal. She cried now, alone in a basement at 2 in the morning. She cried for the man who'd raised her after her mother left, who taught her to shoot and think and refused to be diminished. For the years she'd wasted being scared. When the tears stopped, she stood, walked to the workbench. The third floorboard from the left lifted easily. Underneath was a metal box wrapped in oilcloth. Military grade, wood, waterproof, locked. She didn't open it, not yet. First she had to prove she deserved to. But before tomorrow she needed to know if 5 years away had destroyed what her father built. Kira loaded the Remington 700, set up a target at 50 yards. Should have been simple. First shot, 4 inches left. Second shot, 3 inches high. Rust. 5 years of rust in deliberate forgetting. She forced herself to slow down. Remember the fundamentals: breathing, trigger control, follow through. By the 20th round, she was grouping within 2 inches. By the 50th round, her groups were tight enough. But 50 yards wasn't 1,500, wasn't 2,400. Tomorrow, she'd find out if muscle memory was enough, or if she just made a promise she couldn't keep. The Virginia Beach Long Range Precision Complex opened at 0700. Kira arrived at 0730, wearing jeans and her father's field jacket. The jacket still carried his smell: gun oil, pine, menthol rub for joints that remembered too many parachute jumps. The range sprawled across 300 acres, multiple buildings, berms, target stands from 100 yards to 3,000, where SEALs and Marines and FBI snipers came to push boundaries. Bridges' truck was already there, so were 6 others. Word had spread. The bartender who claimed Phantom Davenport was her father. This was entertainment, a story they'd tell for years. The day someone got humbled by reality. Kira walked toward the main building, her stomach trying to escape through her throat. Every step a reminder of how insane this was. She was a high school history teacher, hadn't competed in 5 years, was about to try out shoot a Navy SEAL in front of the most elite shooting community in America. Bridge waited by the entrance with 3 other men. All of them had the look, military bearing, impossible to hide even in civilian clothes. Scars, the stillness of people who'd learned to wait and watch and act without wasted motion. Didn't think you'd show. His tone had changed from last night, less mocking, more curious. I don't say things I don't mean. We'll see. Range is set up. Target at 1,000 yards to start. Hit that, we'll talk about going farther. He led her through the building. More people had gathered, 20, 30, SEALs, Marines, veterans who traded uniforms for civilian life, but kept the bearing. One old man sat apart from the others, late 60s or early 70s, weathered face, eyes that didn't blink, the kind of stillness that came from places where movement meant death. The target stood at the far end, steel plate, 18 inches across. At 1,000 yards, it looked like a dime held at arm's length. Bridge gestured to the shooting bench. An M40 A6 lay there. Night Force ATACR scope, bipod, suppressor, professional equipment, government money. Weather's decent, 68 degrees. Wind easterly at 7 to 9 miles per hour. Humidity at 65%. He pulled out a ballistic calculator, started entering numbers. Ever shoot past 500 yards? A few times. This isn't backyard plinking. At 1,000 yards, the bullet drops 30 feet. Wind can push it 6 feet left or right. You have to account for Earth's rotation, air density, temperature, everything. He was trying to intimidate her, or maybe help, hard to tell. Here, this will give you the corrections. Kira didn't take the calculator. Instead, she knelt behind the rifle, pressed her cheek to the stock, found the target through the scope. The image swam. She adjusted focus until it sharpened. Behind the target, grass rippled in waves. To the left, a flag snapped and relaxed with each gust. She closed her eyes. Her father's voice came back clear, as if he were standing behind her. Feel it first. The wind on your skin. The temperature. Your breath. The rifle is just a tool. You're the guidance system. You're what makes the difference. She opened her eyes, watched the grass. The wind was consistent, right to left, 7 miles per hour, maybe 8. She timed the gusts and lulls, found the pattern. Everything had a pattern if you watched long enough. 1,000 yards, 8-mile-per-hour crosswind, 90-degree angle to her position. She calculated in her head the way Thaddeus had taught her. No computer, no app, just physics and observation. Bullet weight, probably 175 grains based on the rifle. Velocity around 2,600 feet per second. Time of flight, roughly 1.4 seconds. In that time, the wind would push the bullet about 7 inches. At this distance, that translated to roughly 2 minutes of angle. Elevation was simpler. She needed about 28 minutes. The scope adjusted in quarter-minute clicks. 112 clicks up. She made the adjustments with deliberate precision. Each click audible. Each one a commitment. Bridge watched. You know what you're doing. My father taught me, not with computers, with math and patience, and the belief that understanding how things work gives you power over them. She settled into position, rifle snug against her shoulder, grip firm but relaxed, breathing steady, watched the grass, waited for the pattern to repeat. Wind gusted, relaxed, gusted, relaxed. On the next relaxation, she stopped her breath mid-exhale, found the natural pause between heartbeats, squeezed. The rifle cracked, suppressor muting it to a sharp bark. Recoil pushing into her shoulder. She rode it. Returned to the scope. 1.4 seconds felt infinite. Time enough to doubt everything. Time enough to remember Afghanistan. Time enough to wonder if this whole thing was a mistake. Then the clang echoed across the range. The crowd erupted. Bridge stared through his spotting scope. Dead center, maybe 2 inches high. That's within minute of angle at 1,000 yards. He lowered the scope, looked at her differently now. Not a bartender, a shooter. Do it again. She did. Same process, same calculations running like equations she'd internalized. Same trust in physics and training. Clang! Jesus, someone muttered. Bridges' expression had gone from skeptical to calculating. 1,500 yards. They moved to a different position. New target. The steel plate looked like a pinhead now. A speck, almost abstract. Wind had picked up to 12 miles per hour. Temperature dropping as clouds moved in. Air density changing. Everything shifting. Kira ran the numbers. 1,500 yards. Longer flight time. More wind drift. More variables stacking. The Earth's rotation became significant. Coriolis effect would push the bullet about 3 inches right at this latitude, shooting east. She adjusted, waited for the wind pattern, shot. 3 seconds of flight, long enough to second-guess every assumption. Clang. The old man who'd been sitting apart stood up, walked toward them with the careful gait of someone whose knees remembered too many hard landings. 70-something, face like leather left in the sun. Lines that told stories of deserts and mountains in places where maps ended. He stopped next to Bridge, looked at Kira with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She's right, Bridge. She won't miss. Bridge turned. Hawk, what the hell are you doing here? The old man didn't answer, kept his eyes on Kira. Your father sent me. Technically, 5 years ago. I've been waiting for you to be ready, Kira Davenport. The range went quiet again. Different from before, not anticipation, revelation. Kira felt reality shift slightly. You knew my father? Sergeant Major Sterling Garrison, served with Thaddeus for 20 years. Gulf War, Somalia, 3 tours, Afghanistan. Places without names, things that'll never be in history books. He smiled, but it was sad around the edges. He told me about you, showed pictures, said if anything happened to him, I should watch over you. Make sure you found your way back. Back to what? To this, to who you really are. Sterling gestured at the rifle, the range, the shot she just made. You're Phantom Davenport's daughter. This is in your blood. He paused, choosing words carefully. He looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording, at evidence spreading across social media. Your father didn't die of a heart attack, Kira. The words fell like stones into deep water. He was murdered. And now that you just went viral, he gestured at the recording phones, they'll come for you too. The world tilted. Murdered. Not cardiac arrest, not natural causes, not the peaceful end they described. Murdered. Bridges' hand was on her elbow suddenly. Let's get you out of here. But Kira shook her head, pulled away. Not yet. She looked at the range, at the target at 2,400 yards that Bridge had just had them set up. I came here to break a record, I'm going to break it. Bridge started to protest. Sterling held up a hand. Let her shoot. 2,400 yards. The distance that had stood unbeaten for a decade. The shot that would either make history or confirm she'd gotten lucky twice. Bridge demonstrated first, showed her the setup, explained the challenges. Temperatures dropping, wind shifting every 30 seconds. You'll be shooting at a target a mile and a half away. The bullet will be in the air for almost 4 seconds. Anything can happen in 4 seconds. He shot first. 3 attempts. 8 inches left, 6 inches right, 4 inches high. Close, impressive, but not perfect. The wind was playing games, gusting and dropping and swirling in patterns the calculator couldn't quite predict. Kira didn't rush. Instead, she watched, observed, timed. 5 minutes of watching grass and flags and dust devils forming and dissipating. 5 minutes of finding the rhythm. Every 2 minutes, the wind gusted hard, 15 miles per hour, then died down, dropped to 8 or 9, held there for maybe 30 seconds. That was her window. She calculated one last time, 2,400 yards, 4-second flight time. At 8 miles per hour, roughly 12 feet of wind drift, over 100 feet of drop, Coriolis effect. Air density still changing as the storm approached. All of it approximate, all of it based on feel and experience, and 15 years of training with a man who'd made these shots when lives depended on precision. She waited, watching the pattern. 1 minute, gust hits, flag snapping horizontal. 30 seconds, wind dying. 20 seconds until the next gust. She settled into the rifle, slowed her breathing, found the target. A steel blur that might as well have been on the moon. 15 seconds. Her finger found the trigger. 10 seconds. Wind dying. Flag relaxing. Grass settling. 5 seconds. She pressed her cheek tighter to the stock, felt the rifle become part of her body. Exhale. Half breath. Natural pause. The space between heartbeats. Squeeze. The Barrett roared with enough force to rattle teeth. The suppressor directed blast forward, but the shockwave still rolled across the range like thunder. 4 seconds. Nobody breathed. 30 men frozen, watching a target a mile and a half away. 4 seconds that felt like drowning, like falling, like every fear and doubt compressed into the space of a heartbeat. Then the sound reached them. Clear, unmistakable. The clang of metal meeting metal. The crowd exploded into chaos even before the spotter confirmed it. Dead center, perfect hit. 2,400 yards. Bridge stood motionless, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. He walked over slowly, extended his hand. Phantom would be proud. They shook. Who taught you to do that? Really, no bullshit. My father, Colonel Thaddeus Davenport, Rangers, Special Forces, 3 tours Afghanistan. He taught me that shooting isn't about equipment, it's about patience, observation, respecting forces you can't see but can learn to predict. Behind them, the older SEAL who'd whistled earlier stepped forward. Phantom Davenport. That man was a living legend. They say he made a 20-yard shot during Anaconda, headshot on an Al-Qaeda commander from a position nobody thought was viable. No computer, no spotter, just him and a rifle. And 20 years of knowing how to read God's breath, Sterling added. Kira felt her throat tighten. He never told me about that. Everything he did was classified. The missions that mattered, the ones that changed things, those stay buried. But those of us who knew, we knew we'd witness greatness. Sterling appeared at her elbow. We need to talk, somewhere private, somewhere they can't hear. They who? He looked around the range, at the crowd, at the phones, at evidence spreading that Phantom Davenport's daughter had just announced herself to the world. The people who killed your father, the people who've been waiting 5 years for you to surface. You just lit up like a flare, and now they know exactly where you are. The old Ford Ranger looked like it had survived multiple wars, and maybe a few natural disasters. Rust spreading across the wheel wells. Primer gray passenger door that didn't match the faded blue body. But when Sterling turned the key, the engine purred. Function over aesthetics. Survival over appearance. Kira climbed into the back seat. Bridge took the front. Neither spoke as Sterling pulled out of the parking lot and headed west. They drove for 40 minutes through rural Virginia. Small towns that were just a gas station and a church. Farmland where tobacco grew in defiant rows. Into hill country where trees pressed close and houses sat far back from the road. Sterling finally turned onto a dirt driveway that wound through forest for another 10 minutes before revealing a house. Small, single-story, vinyl siding that had seen better decades. Isolated enough that screaming wouldn't carry and hiding wouldn't fail. He killed the engine, sat with his hands on the wheel. "Before we go inside, I need to know you're both committed." His voice carried gravel and broken glass. "Once you know, you can't unknow. Your lives change. You become targets. You'll have to decide what you're willing to sacrifice for truth that's been buried 22 years. Bridge spoke first, voice steady. "My stepbrother died in 2003. They told us IED, blown up during patrol. No body recovered, no investigation, just a flag and a form letter, and an officer who couldn't answer questions." He paused, muscle jumping in his jaw. 20 years trying to find out what really happened. "So yeah, I'm committed. All in, whatever it takes." Sterling turned to Kira. "And you've been running 5 years. You could keep running. Take Bridges 50,000, move somewhere new, start over. Your father would understand. He'd want you safe more than involved." Kira thought about Ainsley. 16, honor student, dreams of becoming a veterinarian. What would this do to her if Kira disappeared? But she also thought about Thaddeus, about the letter, about 5 years of living half a life because she'd been too scared to face truth. "I'm in." The house was exactly what you'd expect from 40 years military. Sparse, functional, nothing wasted. Sterling made coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Poured 3 mugs, no cream, no sugar, no apology. Then he sat, pulled a folder from a locked cabinet, set it on the table like a man handling explosives. Operation Anaconda, March 2002. Photos spilled out. Young men in desert camouflage, mountains behind them, the kind of terrain that ate soldiers. 6-man team, Sterling pointed to faces. Your father led, Thaddeus Davenport, Phantom, best sniper I ever served with. He pointed to another photo. Me, Sterling Garrison, communications and demo. Another photo, a young man with steady eyes and careful hands. Staff Sergeant Ronan Webb, medic, kept us alive through 3 firefights that should have killed us. Another, a man with laugh lines and a wedding ring. Corporal Callum York, heavy weapons, wife and 2 kids, little girl named Emma, boy named Jack. Showed me pictures every day. Another, dark hair, intense expression. Specialist Dorian Cross, intel in languages, spoke Pashto like a native, could blend anywhere, saved us more times than I can count. The last photo made Bridge lean forward. His hand trembled slightly. A young man, early 20s, bright smile, same eyes as Bridge. Cassian. That's my brother. Your stepbrother, Cassian Hawthorne, communications specialist, 22 years old, wanted to be a teacher when he got out. Sterling's expression went blank, professional report mode. Mission was simple, locate and eliminate Taliban commander Khalid Ahmadi. High-value target responsible for 12 American deaths. Intel said he was in a compound in Shah-e-Khat Valley. He pulled out a map marked with grids and elevation lines. We inserted here, hiked 12 kilometers through hell, set up observation here, had eyes on the compound 3 days. You found him? We found him. And something else. Different photo, long lens, grainy but clear enough. 3 men, not Afghans, Americans. Civilian clothes, expensive gear. Standing by a truck with covered bed. Contractors, private military company called Vanguard Solutions. We watched them 3 days, documented everything. More photos spread across the table. Sequence shots, men loading crates, unloading, meeting with Afghans in traditional dress. Those crates contain weapons, Chinese AK-47s, RPGs, ammunition enough to equip a small army. We watched them sell to the same Taliban fighters killing American soldiers 20 kilometers away. Bridges' hands curled into fists. Selling to the enemy while we died. Not just selling, buying too. More photos. Burlap sacks being loaded. Men accepting American cash. Opium, massive quantities. They were buying from warlords, shipping through Pakistani contacts, using profits to buy more weapons, creating a cycle, a machine. He leaned back, rubbed his face. The longer the war continued, the more opium they bought, more weapons they sold, more money they made. $847 million in fraudulent contracts between 2002 and 2008. The number hung in the air like poison. Vanguard had Department of Defense contracts, security, logistics, consulting, billing American taxpayers while simultaneously funding the enemy, making sure the war never ended because ending meant their profits stopped. Kira felt sick. My father found proof. We all did. Cassian cloned one of their laptops. Kid was genius with technology, got everything. Names, numbers, transaction records, wire transfers to offshore accounts, photos with Vanguard logos visible, emails between executives and DoD officials discussing contract extensions. His voice turned bitter. Proof that American contractors prolonged a war that killed American soldiers for profit they'd never spend. What happened when you reported it? We didn't, not through normal channels. Your father was too smart, knew how deep this went, knew Vanguard had people everywhere. Pentagon, State Department, probably CIA. He took a long drink, hands shaking slightly. Thaddeus smuggled the hard drive out, mailed it to a dead drop, old contact who could hold it. Then we filed official report, said we eliminated Ahmadi. Mission successful. Nothing unusual. Back to business as usual. Sterling pulled out another document. Names with dates. Dates of death. Causes. 2 weeks later, Cassian Hawthorne died in what they called vehicle accident. Humvee rollover. Body burned beyond recognition. Military funeral with full honors. Bridges' voice strangled. Except Cassian wasn't in any vehicle that day. He was on base. Nowhere near where they said it happened. But official reports said vehicle accident. Official reports become truth. You're telling me they murdered him and you just let them? Sterling's voice rose to match Bridges' anger. We had no proof. No way to prove anything without revealing what we knew. And the moment we did that, we'd all be dead. Don't you understand? These weren't criminals. These were people with billions in connections everywhere. People who could make anyone disappear. Silence fell like a hammer. Who else? Sterling pointed to the list. Ronan Webb, training accident, 2004, shot during live fire by unknown friendly fire. Investigation concluded tragic mistake. Case closed. Callum York, suicide, 2005, found hanging in his barracks. His voice cracked. Callum was the happiest man I knew. Wife and 2 kids he adored. Planning to retire and teach. No note, no warning, but official cause was suicide. Dorian Cross, vehicle rollover, 2007, single car accident, straight road, broad daylight, no skid marks, just drove off the road and died. Bad luck. He looked up, eyes wet. By 2007, just me and your father left, 2 out of 6, the others dead within 5 years. All in ways that look like accidents, but the odds were too long. The pattern too clear. They were being eliminated systematically, professionally, by people who knew how. Kira's voice came out as a whisper. What did you and my father do? Made a pact, hide the evidence, bury it deep, wait for the right moment, stay alive, stay quiet, let them think we'd forgotten. Played dead until we could figure out how to expose this without dying. For how long? 17 years. We stayed quiet 17 years. Your father retired, bought his cabin, lived like a hermit, taught you, never talked about Afghanistan or what we found or the brothers we lost. Sterling walked to the window, stared out. I did the same. Different state, different life, minimum contact. We only communicated through dead drops, old school tradecraft, nothing digital, nothing intercepted. We thought if we stayed invisible, they'd forget, move on, assume the threat passed. But they didn't. No, 2019, your father contacted me, said someone approached him. Who? Man in expensive suit, professional, offered 10 million to destroy the hard drive, forget everything, die quietly. He turned back, said it'd be better for everyone. Nobody wanted ancient history. War was over. What did it matter? He refused. Of course, Thaddeus Davenport didn't know how to do wrong, even when it would have saved his life, even when everyone would understand if he'd taken the money. Sterling's voice cracked. He called me the night before he died, payphone, said if anything happened, I should find you. Wait till you were ready. Make sure you knew the truth. Make sure his death meant something. The cardiac arrest, potassium chloride injection, causes cardiac arrest that looks completely natural unless specifically testing for it. 68-year-old man lives alone, found dead in workshop, no signs of struggle, everything consistent with heart attack. He sat, looked older now. By the time they found him, too late. Potassium metabolized, autopsy showed nothing. Case closed, old man dies, nobody questioned it. Kira gripped the table, knuckles white, room spinning. Her father, the man who raised her, who taught her strength, murdered, killed while she lived in ignorance. Too scared to follow his letter, too scared to ask questions. Who? Single word, hard, angry, demanding. Who did it? Sterling reached into the folder one more time. Single photograph, placed it carefully. Man in his mid-60s. Corporate handsome, expensive suit, American flag pin, shaking hands with someone cropped out. Conference room behind. Money and power captured on film. Victor Remington, VP of Operations for Vanguard Solutions, 2002, running the show in Afghanistan, signed off on weapons deals and opium purchases. His finger tapped the photo. Now CEO of Sentinel Global Security, same company, different name, rebranded 2010 after Vanguard got bad press. Kira studied the photo, memorized the face, easy smile, confidence of a man who'd never faced consequences. 69 now, worth 3.4 billion. Sentinel has contracts with Pentagon, CIA, NSA, Homeland Security, State Department, every agency that matters. Untouchable, connected everywhere, senators on speed dial, generals at his dinner table, money to make problems disappear. Bridge leaned over the photo. He ordered the hits. Can't prove it without the hard drive, but yeah, Victor had the most to lose. The laptop had his name everywhere, his signature on transfers, his emails authorizing sales, his instructions on structuring contracts to avoid oversight. Sterling met Kira's eyes. He knew what we found, been eliminating witnesses ever since. Silence broken only by a clock ticking, each second falling like stones. Finally, Bridge spoke. You said my father hid the hard drive. Where? Sterling smiled. First genuine smile Kira had seen. Appreciation. Respect. That's the genius part. Thaddeus knew they'd come after anyone associated, anyone who might know location. So he didn't tell anyone. Not even me. Not one person knew. Then how? He left clues in his letter, in journals, in training he gave you. Sterling looked at Kira. Everything you need is in knowledge he passed down. Shared experiences only you have. Best encryption isn't digital. It's memory, experience, knowledge that can't be tortured out because only one person has the right combination. Kira pulled the letter from her pocket, unfolded it, read with new understanding. GPS coordinates, 34.8794 north, 79.0128 west. Bridge was already on his phone. North Carolina, Uwharrie National Forest, middle of nowhere. Sterling flipped over a map. North Carolina, red X in dense forest. Thaddeus bought land there in the 90s. 20 acres of nothing. No structures, no improvements, no reason except hiding something. He tapped the map. He buried it there, I'm sure. But I don't know exactly where. Coordinates get you to general area. 20 acres of forest. Could search months without more specific information. Kira stared at the letter. Her father's handwriting. Instructions from beyond the grave. He said I'd know what to do. She closed her eyes, thought through 15 years of training, every lesson, every detail. Understanding crystallized. The metal box, in my trunk. I need something. They walked outside. Kira opened the Honda's trunk, pulled out the metal box wrapped in oilcloth, set it on the truck hood. Simple combination lock, 3 numbers. She tried her birthday, 0328. Didn't open. Tried Thaddeus's birthday. Nothing. Bridge watched. What are you thinking? Everything means something, every detail. He never did anything without purpose. She looked at GPS coordinates again, tried those on the lock. 348, click. The box opened. Inside, wrapped in more oilcloth, a bullet casing. 50 caliber, engraved carefully along the side. Phantom 2520, Anaconda 02. His record shot. Sterling breathed. The 2520 everyone talks about. Kira turned the casing in her hands. Cool, heavy, real. He used it as a marker, a key. Understanding formed like ice crystallizing. The hard drive is buried at the exact distance and direction from the coordinates as his record shot. 2,520 yards. I need to calculate direction based on something in his training. Something only I'd know. Bridge whistled. Brilliant. Even if someone found coordinates, they'd have no idea where to dig. Need distance and bearing. Without that, 20 acres is a needle in a haystack. But you know, Kira thought hard, 20 yards from coordinates. But which direction? Her father would use something meaningful, something she'd remember, personal. Then it hit. My birthday, March 28th, 87th day of the year. She looked at Sterling. 87 degrees. That's the bearing. 87 degrees from true north. Sterling pulled a protractor from his truck, spread the map, measured carefully. 20 yards at 87 degrees from GPS coordinates. His finger stopped at a specific point. Creek bend, rock formation, exactly where calculation led. Damn, Bridge said softly. Your father taught you well. We leave tonight. Sterling was moving, pulling gear from the house, rifles, ammunition, night vision, medical supplies, everything for tactical operation in hostile territory, because that's what this was, war. If they've been watching you, and they have, they know you came here. Maybe 6-hour head start before they figure what we're doing and where. Bridge pulled out his phone, stared, put it away without calling. What? Was going to call for backup. Other SEALs I trust. But who can I trust? If Victor has Pentagon connections, he has military connections. Law enforcement. Anyone I call might be compromised, might report back. So it's just us 3. Sterling handed Bridge a rifle. M4A1, military grade, real thing. Like old days, small team, dark of night, get in, get objective, Get out. Pause. Except we're not 25 anymore. Bridge checked the rifle. Loaded magazine, chamber check, safety, everything automatic. An objective isn't Taliban commander. It's evidence that could bring down a billionaire with friends everywhere and resources to make us disappear. Kira accepted the rifle Sterling handed her. Remington 700. Same model Thaddeus used. Same one she trained with. She checked it. Magazine, chamber, safety, scope, everything perfect. Which is why we move fast, grab drive, get it safe, then figure how to go public without dying. They loaded into Sterling's truck as sun dipped below horizon. 3 hours to North Carolina, then night hike to find a hard drive buried 22 years ago by a man who'd known he might not live to retrieve it. A man who trusted his daughter would be smart enough and skilled enough and brave enough to finish what he started. Headlights cut through gathering darkness as they pulled onto the road. Behind them, Sterling's house sat dark. Safe house that wasn't safe anymore. Refuge that expired the moment Kira broke that record. Bridge watched mirrors. Black Ford Explorer, 3 cars back. Been there since we left. Sterling's jaw tightened. Spotted 5 minutes ago. Professional tail. Proper distance. Probably backup vehicles rotating. Standard surveillance. Can we lose them? Not without confirming we know. Better to let them follow. Make them think we're oblivious. Ghost them closer to objective. Kira turned carefully. Looked through rear window. Explorer there. Dark tinted windows. Perfect distance. Neither too close nor far. Professional. What happens in North Carolina? Then we disappear. Sterling took a turn. Explorer followed at exact interval. I know roads where GPS doesn't work and towers don't reach. Ghost them old-fashioned way. Terrain and darkness and skills they stopped teaching. They drove in silence 30 more minutes. Explorer never wavered, never closed, never dropped back. Patient predator waiting. Bridges' phone buzzed. He looked, frowned. Text from unknown number, read aloud. Stop digging or everyone dies. Words hung like smoke, heavy, toxic. Trying to scare us off. Sterling's hand steady. Means they're not ready to move. Want us to quit, walk away, forget. Will they let us? Kira asked the question that mattered. That determined if this was rescue or suicide. If we stopped now, turned around, would they leave us alone? Sterling met her eyes in rear view. Truth there before he spoke. Your father tried, 17 years, stayed quiet, hidden, minded his business. How'd that work? Answer obvious. 68-year-old man dead in workshop with potassium chloride and death certificate saying cardiac arrest. No walking away, not anymore, maybe never. Moment Thaddeus copied that laptop, refused to destroy evidence, chose truth over safety, he set this in motion. Now Kira was caught in the current, swept along whether she wanted or not. She'd started something by breaking that record, by proving who she was, by connecting dots between Phantom Davenport's daughter and the old man murdered for knowing too much. Only way forward was through darkness, through forest, through whatever Victor Remington and Sentinel Global threw at them, all the way to truth buried 22 years, waiting in North Carolina soil like unexploded bomb that could bring down empires and destroy careers and expose corruption at highest levels of American power. Sterling turned onto smaller road, then smaller. Explorer followed, patient, relentless, machine following programming. Bridge pulled device from pack. Small, electronic. Looked at screen. Face hardened. GPS tracker. Under rear wheel well. They planted it, probably at the bar, maybe longer. Of course they'd known about Kira before she'd made the shot. Watching. Waiting. Tracking movements with electronic precision. Shot just confirmed suspicions that Phantom Davenport's daughter wasn't just a teacher. That skills had been passed down, that knowledge hadn't died. Now they were following that knowledge to where secrets were buried, where truth waited like a loaded gun. Sterling pulled off main road onto dirt track barely wide enough for truck. Vehicle bounced over roots and rocks. Explorer followed, headlights painting shadows through trees. Closer now, less patient, sensing time running out. Hold on! Sterling killed headlights. World went dark. Only moonlight filtered through canopy. He accelerated. Truck lurched forward blind. Branches scraped sides like fingernails on chalkboard. Something crunched under tires. Behind them, Explorer's headlights vanished as it went dark too. But Sterling knew this road, had driven it 100 times, preparing for moments like this. Hard left onto trail barely wider than truck. Branches closed from both sides. Kind of trail you'd miss if you didn't know exactly where. Explorer missed the turn. Brake lights flashed red. Too late. By the time they corrected, Sterling had gained quarter mile. He drove 10 more minutes, twisting, turning, following paths that weren't on maps, that existed only in memory of old soldiers who'd learned terrain was sometimes the best weapon. Finally pulled truck into a ravine, killed engine. Silence rushed in, forest breathing. No headlights, no engines, just wind and trees and distant owl hunting. We walk from here, 5 miles to coordinates, move fast and quiet, there by midnight, retrieve drive. Gone before they figure where we went. They geared up in darkness, rifles, night vision, water, first aid. Sterling moved with practiced efficiency, Bridge with precision of muscle memory. Kira tried keeping up, copying movements, hoping body remembered enough training. They moved into forest in tactical formation, Sterling on point, Bridge rear security, Kira in middle with GPS unit guiding toward coordinates that represented salvation or damnation. Forest alive with night sounds, crickets, frogs, small animals in undergrowth, fox calling distant, creek gurgling over rocks worn smooth by centuries. Kira's heart hammered. Every shadow looked like threat, every sound like approaching danger. But Sterling and Bridge moved with calm confidence, weapons ready, eyes scanning, bodies loose and prepared for violence that might not come, but probably would. After an hour, Sterling raised fist. Everyone stopped. He pointed through trees, small clearing ahead, 6 figures moving with tactical precision, dark clothing, weapons, night vision, professional operators doing professional work. They'd beaten them here. Despite tail shaking, despite tracker removal, Sentinel predicted where they were going and got there first. Set up, waiting. Bridge leaned close to Sterling's ear, whispered something Kira couldn't hear. Sterling nodded, made hand signals. Wordless communication from years operating together. They backed away slowly, circled around. Forest became ally, concealing movement. Masking approach with wind and animal sounds in natural chaos. Took 30 more minutes getting into position. Ridgeline overlooking clearing, 200 yards separation, high ground, tactical advantage that determined battles. Through night vision scope, Kira could see clearly. 6 contractors, professional military bearing, digging, already dug 3 holes different locations, searching, testing, looking for hard drive using methods that would take days to cover 20 acres. They didn't know about calculation. About 20 yards at 87 degrees. About specific spot by Creek Bend where Thaddeus buried insurance. Searching blind, hoping, guessing, using resources and manpower to make up for lack of intelligence. Sterling pointed to location 50 yards from where contractors dug. That was the spot. Real location. They could see it from here. Distinctive rock formation, creek bend, exactly where Kira's calculations predicted. But between them and that spot stood 6 armed men sent to kill them. Bridge leaned close, breath warm against her ear. Can you make this shot? She looked through scope. 200 yards. Night. Moving targets. Wind minimal. Temperature cool. Visibility good with night vision. Kind of shot that'd be easy in daylight. Harder now, but not impossible. Yes, if this goes bad, we'll need you covering. Sterling and I move to location. Retrieve drive. You keep them pinned. Keep them from flanking. Keep them from killing us. Can you? Could she? Could she shoot at human beings? People who'd die if her bullets found marks. People with families and lives and dreams ending because she pulled trigger. She thought about her father, about Cassian and Ronan and Callum and Dorian, about all the soldiers who died in war prolonged for profit, about men who'd made billions from blood, about justice and right and wrong and whether any mattered when alternative was letting evil win because too scared to do what needed doing. Yes, Sterling checked watch, looked at bridge. Wordless communication passed. Language of men who'd fought together, trusted each other with lives where trust was only currency. They moved, silent as ghosts, down ridge into forest toward rock formation and buried truth that could change everything. Kira stayed on ridge, rifle steady, breathing controlled, watching through scope as two old warriors crept through darkness toward destiny 22 years making. Contractors hadn't spotted them, still focused on methodical search, digging, testing, looking in wrong places because they didn't know how Phantom Davenport thought, didn't know about calculations and distances, and how a father leaves clues in training he gives daughter. Sterling and Bridge reached rock formation, started digging, fast but quiet, dirt flying in controlled amounts, disciplined, professional, product of decades doing this work. One contractor turned, raised night vision, scanned area. Kira's crosshair settled on his chest. 200 yards, center mass, easy shot, but it announced presence. Start fight they might not win. Her finger touched trigger. Not yet, not unless necessary. Hold fire until moment demanded. Contractor's radio crackled. He responded, turned away, back to supervising dig. Sterling's hand disappeared into hole he'd been digging. Came back up holding something. Waterproof case, military spec. Kind that could survive burial for decades. He showed Bridge. Even from 200 yards, Kira could see relief on both faces. They'd found it. Hard drive, evidence, truth that could bring down Victor Remington and expose corruption and maybe give Thaddeus's death meaning beyond tragedy. Then everything went wrong at once. Lights blazed from 3 directions, floodlights on tripods. Blinding, overwhelming night vision. Kira ripped off goggles, blinked against sudden brightness turning night into artificial day. In clearing, Sterling and Bridge frozen, caught in open, surrounded, tactical nightmare every operator feared. Voice boomed through bullhorn, amplified, authoritative, voice of someone used to being obeyed. Sergeant Garrison, Mr. Hawthorne, set down the case, hands on heads. You're surrounded by 20 contractors with orders to shoot if you resist. 20, not 6. Others hidden, waiting. Whole thing a trap from beginning. Carefully orchestrated to let them find drive, then take it along with their lives. Kira's crosshairs swept the clearing, counting targets. She could see 12. Others must be in trees, positions she couldn't identify, positions that probably had her in sights. Sterling and Bridge didn't move, didn't comply, stood frozen, calculating odds that didn't favor them. Voice came again, closer. We know you're up there too, Miss Davenport. Thermal signature quite clear. Put down rifle. Come out or we start shooting your friends. 10 seconds to decide. 10 seconds. Then they die. Count began. 10. Kira's mind raced. They had thermal. Probably tracked her whole time. Every move. Every position. She'd been in crosshairs since reaching ridge. 9. One shot and she'd be dead. 8. Sterling looked up toward where she hid. Even without night vision, even blinded by floodlights, found her position with instinct from decades reading terrain. Shook his head, mouthed one word. Run. 7, 6, 5. Bridges' hand moved toward rifle. Suicide play. Last act of defiance. Last middle finger to people who thought they could kill with impunity. 4, 3. Kira stood, stepped into light, rifle lowered, hands visible, making herself target because alternative was watching two good men die for trying to help. "Don't shoot, I'm coming out." Relief on Sterling's face warred with fury. Bridge looked like he wanted to scream, but contractors didn't fire, didn't move, waited as Kira made her way down ridge, through trees, into clearing where floodlights turned night into day and truth into weapon cutting both ways. Figure stepped forward from darkness beyond lights, older, distinguished, expensive outdoor gear, never seeing real wilderness. Silver hair, confident smile, smile of man who'd won every game. Victor Remington in person. 3.4 billion wearing LL Bean in tactical boots. Man who'd ordered her father's murder, who'd killed good men to protect profits, who'd corrupted war and gotten away with it 22 years. He looked at Kira like collector examining rare specimen. Interesting but ultimately disposable. Phantom Davenport's daughter. You have his eyes. Same stubborn determination that got him killed. He gestured at waterproof case in Sterling's hands. "Thank you for finding that. Been looking 22 years. Spent millions searching. You just led me right to it." Smile widened. "Almost makes me wish I'd let your father live. He trained you well." Kira's voice came out steady despite fear coursing through veins. Despite 20 rifles pointed at her and knowledge she was probably about to die in North Carolina forest without anyone knowing truth. "You murdered him." Victor's smile didn't waver. "I solved a problem. There's a difference." Gestured to contractor. Man moved forward, took waterproof case from Sterling's hands. Sterling didn't resist. 20 rifles made resistance death sentence with no upside. Contractor brought case to Victor. He opened it with careful attention of someone handling treasure or explosives, or both. Inside, wrapped in vacuum-sealed plastic, a hard drive, military grade, 2 terabytes, 22 years waiting, compressed into 6 ounces of silicon and metal. Victor held it up to light. $847 million. That's what this represents. Evidence of contracts and transfers that send me to prison for life. Smiled. Genuine pleasure. If it ever saw light of day, which it won't, Bridge spoke, voice cold, flat, voice of man who'd accepted death and no longer cared about consequences. "You killed my stepbrother, Cassian Hawthorne, man who served his country, believed in something bigger than money, died trying to do right. I removed obstacles." Victor's eyes didn't change, didn't show guilt or shame or any recognition what he said might be monstrous. Cassian was obstacle, as were Webb and York and Cross and your father, Miss Davenport. Good men, I'm sure, principled, honorable, but good men who stood between me and evolution of modern warfare. Expression sharpened. "You know what Vanguard became? What Sentinel does now?" Didn't wait for answer, didn't need one. Speech he'd practiced, justified, made peace with years ago. "We don't just provide security, we enable policy. Make decisions weak politicians won't. Keep wars running long enough to create stability, long enough to build infrastructure, long enough to reshape regions according to American interests. Democracy and freedom and all things that make world better." "You mean your interests?" Sterling's voice thick with disgust. "American soldiers died so you could get richer, buy yachts and jets and senators. That's all this was. Greed dressed as patriotism. American soldiers die in every war. That's the job, what they signed up for." Victor's expression didn't change. At least with Sentinel, their deaths meant something. Meant continued funding for military, continued presence in strategic regions, continued influence for American power. Looked at Kira. "Your father called me war criminal. I called him short-sighted. History will decide which was right, but I'll be alive to see that judgment. He won't. Kira's hands clenched into fists, every muscle screaming to move. Fight. Do something other than stand here listening to man justify murder with economics and geopolitics and sociopathic reasoning putting profit over human life. You're going to kill us now. Not question. Statement. Acceptance of reality. Victor's smile widened. No, Miss Davenport. I'm giving you choice. Same choice I gave your father before he made mistake of refusing. Pulled phone from pocket, tapped screen with deliberate slowness. Showed what displayed. Bank account. Offshore account with balance that made her breath catch. And mind go blank. An entire worldview shift sideways. $20 million. Wire transfer. Instant. Untraceable. Split 3 ways. 6.6 million each. Enough to disappear anywhere. Live without worry. Forget tonight happened. Offer hung like poison. Beautiful. Tempting. Absolutely corrupting. Kind of money that changed everything. Made problems disappear. Turned principles into luxuries you couldn't afford. Bridge laughed. Sharp. Bitter. Laugh of man hearing something so absurd it circled back to comedy. You think we can be bought? After what you've done? After people you killed? Everyone can be bought. Just question of price. Victor's eyes moved between them, reading, calculating, processing. Your stepbrother couldn't be bought, but he was young, idealistic, stupid. You're older now, seen how world really works, how justice is luxury the powerful afford and powerless can't. How principles don't pay rent, or put food on table, or matter when you're dead. Sterling spat on ground. Blood money, that's all. Money earned from deaths of men who trusted their country, believed they were fighting for something that mattered. All money is blood money if you trace back far enough. Every fortune built on someone else's suffering. Victor pocketed phone. But I'll make it easier. Take money and live. Or refuse and die. Right here, right now. Your body's never found. This clearing seeded and fertilized. 5 years, no one will know anything happened. Your disappearances, mysteries. Tragic, but ultimately forgotten. Kira's mind raced, looking for options, looking for leverage, looking for anything that might shift calculus from certain death to possible survival. Her father had been in this position, been offered money, refused, died for that refusal. But he'd also left clues, prepared, planned for this moment even if he hadn't lived to see it. You need us alive. Words came out before she'd fully formed thought. Instinct, desperation, hope, all mixed. Victor's eyebrow raised, interested, curious. Interesting. Why would I need that? Because you don't know if that's only copy. She was bluffing, making it up. But Victor didn't know, couldn't know. My father was too smart to bury one hard drive without insurance, without backup, without protection. Voice gained strength, confidence born of desperation. For all you know, there are 3 more, 5 more, 10 more, hidden in locations only we know, places you'll never find without our cooperation. Bluff, desperate gamble, Hail Mary thrown into darkness hoping someone would catch. Kira had no idea if there were other copies. Thaddeus never mentioned backups. But Victor didn't know, couldn't know, and doubt was a weapon when you had no others. His smile faded slightly. First crack in confidence. First hint that maybe, possibly, he didn't have complete control. Your father had 22 years to reveal evidence if he had copies. He didn't, which means this is it, only copy. Or means he was waiting for right moment, waiting for people he could trust, people who'd know what to do with it. Kira took step forward. One contractor raised rifle. Victor waved him off. You kill us, you'll spend rest of your life wondering if somewhere backup exists, wondering if tomorrow's the day it surfaces, wondering if every journalist who calls, every investigation that opens, is beginning of end. Victor studied her face. Long seconds passed. Forest sounds seemed to pause, waiting for his decision. Floodlights hummed, generators running somewhere in darkness, electricity powering this moment where truth and power collided. You're bluffing. Maybe. Or maybe my father taught me more than shooting. Maybe he taught me about dead drops and insurance and how to make sure powerful men stay awake at night, wondering if they've really won or if they're just waiting for axe to fall. Silence stretched. Victor's jaw worked like chewing on scenarios, calculating probabilities, running risk assessments the way CEOs did, way men with billions did when faced with threats to empire. Finally spoke. Prove it. Tell me where another copy is hidden right now. If you're telling truth, you'll know. If you're bluffing, you won't. Kira's heart hammered. She had nothing. No proof. No backup location. Just desperation and hope someone, somewhere, thought ahead. Then Bridges' voice cut through tension. Steady. Confident. Voice of man who'd just drawn royal flush. Fort Bragg, safety deposit box. Bank of America branch on Bragg Boulevard. Box number 347. Keys hidden in base of flagpole at Special Operations Memorial. Paused. Let it sink in. Your father told me that night he called, week before he died. Said if anything happened, that's where I'd find insurance. Said you'd need it someday. Kira stared at Bridge. Was he telling truth or making same desperate bluff? His face gave nothing. Stone professional face of man who'd learned to lie convincingly where bad lies got you killed. Victor's eyes narrowed. Check it. One contractor pulled out laptop, satellite connection, typed rapidly, pulled up what looked like bank records. More typing. Face went pale. Sir, there's box registered under that number. Rented 2019. Still active. Monthly payments from account registered to Daniel Hawthorne. Bridges' father, Cassian's father, man who'd lost son and spent rest of life grieving. Maybe man who'd helped Thaddeus set this up. Maybe man who'd understood some fights continued long after fighters died. Victor looked at hard drive in hands, then at them, then at contractors. Mental calculations visible in tightening jaw, narrowing eyes, shift in posture from confident to cautious. There's fourth option, voice silk over steel, smooth and dangerous. I keep you alive but not free. Comfortable imprisonment, facility secure, off books. You live there until I verify every backup found and destroyed. Could take months, could take years, but you'd be alive. Better than alternative. That's not living, Sterling's voice flat, final. That's just slow death. Prison with better amenities. No different than killing us, except we watch ourselves waste away. Best offer you're going to get. Kira's mind worked frantically. They were trapped, outgunned, surrounded. Even if they fought, even if they took some contractors, they'd still die. Hard drive would disappear. Truth would stay buried. Victor would win. Everything Thaddeus fought for would be for nothing. Unless... I'll make you counteroffer. Victor's eyebrows rose, amused, interested. You're not in position to negotiate. I broke 10-year seal record today in front of 30 witnesses with cell phones. That footage is all over social media by now. Military forums, shooting communities. Phantom Davenport's daughter is famous as of 6 hours ago. Paused. Let him process. Very visible, very public. So I'm visible now. If I disappear tonight, people will ask questions. SEALs will ask questions. Kind of questions that lead to investigations. Kind even you can't shut down completely without raising more suspicions. Victor's smile returned, but thinner. You think internet fame protects you? Influencers disappear all time. Tragic accidents. Missing person cases never solved. I think it complicates your cleanup. I think it means you can't just make me vanish without consequences. Kira took another step forward, close enough to see calculation in Victor's eyes. weighing risks and benefits. Here's my offer. We walk away tonight. Now, we keep hard drive, you keep freedom, and we establish new kind of insurance, mutual assured destruction. Let words settle. We have evidence that destroys you. You have resources that could destroy us. We both walk away knowing if either side moves, both sides lose. Cold War doctrine worked 50 years between superpowers, can work between us. Clearing went silent except for hum of floodlights and distant sound of creak. Victor stared at her like puzzle he couldn't solve, variable he hadn't accounted for. Your father made similar proposal. I rejected it. Look where that got him. And look where that got you. 22 years of paranoia, hunting down old men, spending resources on cleanup, living in fear that someday, somehow, truth would surface. Kira's voice gained strength. Meanwhile, sentinels under congressional scrutiny, Pentagons asking questions. How long before someone makes connection? How long before your house of cards collapses? Not because we exposed you, but because you drew too much attention trying to silence us. Victor's jaw tightened. Muscle jumped in cheek. For a first time since stepping into light, he looked uncertain. Not afraid. Men like Victor didn't do fear. But uncertain, calculating whether killing them created more problems than it solved. If I agreed to this arrangement, there are conditions. Name them. Hard drive stays buried. Literally. You don't access it, don't copy it, don't show anyone. Remains in secure location known only to you three. Untouched, forgotten. Agreed, with condition of our own. We create dead man's switch. If anything happens to any of us, accidents, illnesses, mysterious disappearances, evidence automatically goes public, no exceptions. Victor's lips pressed into thin line. How would this switch work? We have lawyer, someone completely removed from this, someone who doesn't know what's in package they're holding. They have instructions. If we don't check in every week, package gets opened and distributed to every major news outlet in America. Kira held his gaze. You can't kill lawyer without revealing what you're hiding. Can't find package without one of us telling you where it is. Mutual assured destruction. Victor turned away, walked to edge of clearing, stood with back to them, silhouetted against floodlights. Shoulders rose and fell with deep breaths. Breathing of man making decision that would define rest of life. When he turned back, expression had changed. Still calculating but resigned. Look of man who'd been outmaneuvered and knew it. You have 1 week to set this up. 1 week to establish dead man's switch and prove to me it's real. After that, we revisit. If I find any evidence you're trying to expose what's on drive, deal's off. He pointed at Kira, finger aimed at her heart like weapon. Your sister, Ainsley, 16, Richmond High School, honor student, wants to be veterinarian. Threat clear. Wasn't just their lives at stake. Understood, Kira nodded. So did Sterling and Bridge. Victor gestured to contractors. Let them go, but I want surveillance 24/7. If they so much as talk to journalists, I want to know immediately. Contractors lowered weapons reluctantly. Tension remained thick, but immediate threat of death had passed, for now. Victor walked past Kira, stopped, spoke quietly enough only she could hear. Your father was better man than I am, but better men don't change world. They just die with clean consciences. Met her eyes. You have his skill. Hope you don't inherit his sense of martyrdom. Because next time, no negotiations, only bullets. Then he was gone, walking into darkness beyond floodlights. Contractors followed one by one until only humming lights remained, casting harsh shadows on clearing that almost became graveyard. Moment last contractor disappeared, Kira's legs nearly gave out. Bridge caught her elbow, steadied her. That was bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Voice shook slightly, adrenaline wearing off. Sterling retrieved waterproof case from where contractor had set it, held it like it was both precious and poisonous. We have 1 week to set up something that probably doesn't exist. Create insurance out of whole cloth. Convince Victor Remington we're more valuable alive than dead. Safety deposit box. Kira looked at Bridge. Was that real? Bridge's expression grim. I have no idea, but I figured if I sounded confident enough, he'd believe it. Or at least doubt. Doubt is all we needed to stay alive tonight. Dead man's switch. We'll figure it out. We have lawyers, resources. 1 week to build cage that holds both sides. Looked at hard drive. First, we need to secure that. Really secure it. Not buried in forest. Somewhere that multiple systems would have to fail before it could be compromised. Sterling was already moving, gathering gear, erasing evidence of presence. I know place. Multiple layers of security. Off-grid. No digital footprint. Get there by morning. Set everything up, then disappear until we build framework Victor demanded. They gathered equipment, moved through forest with renewed urgency. Behind them, floodlights shut off one by one, plunging, clearing back into darkness, erasing evidence of what almost happened. What might still happen if they couldn't deliver on promises made under duress. Hike back to Sterling's truck took 2 hours. Every shadow felt like surveillance. Every sound like contractors doubling back to finish what Victor started. But they reached vehicle without incident. Drove through back roads in silence, each lost in thoughts about deals made with devils, and whether survival was worth compromises required. Dawn broke over Virginia countryside as they pulled into storage facility outside Richmond. Sterling had unit there, climate controlled, heavily secured. He opened it to reveal space that looked like prepper's dream or nightmare. Supplies, weapons, communications equipment, everything to survive or fight or both. He also had safe, biometric, key code, physical lock, kind of redundant security requiring 3 people to open and 3 to close. They placed hard drive inside, sealed it, set protocols. Now it would take all 3 agreeing to access again. One person couldn't retrieve alone, even under coercion, even under torture. System required willing cooperation from multiple parties. Elegant network of tripwires and fail-safes that would activate if any of them died or disappeared. Wasn't perfect. Victor had resources that could potentially circumvent some protections, but it was good enough. Good enough that killing them became more risky than letting them live. Good enough that mutual assured destruction became more than empty words spoken in forest clearing. Kira looked at the sealed safe, at the men who'd risk everything to help her find truth her father died protecting. 1 week, she said. We build this cage, make it real. Then we live knowing we're always 1 step from death, but alive, fighting, refusing to forget. Sterling nodded. Bridge clasped her shoulder. Outside, sun climbed higher. New day beginning. War far from over. But for now, they'd survived. And survival, Kira was learning, was its own kind of victory. 3 months passed. The kind of months where you wake each morning surprised to still be alive. Where every phone call might be the last. Where every car following too close might be the end. But the calls came. Weekly check-ins. Texts between Kira and Bridge and Sterling. All good. 3 words that meant everything. Proof of life. Confirmation the arrangement still held. That Victor hadn't moved. That mutual destruction remained mutual. Kira went back to teaching Richmond High School. American history. The irony wasn't lost on her. Teaching sanitized versions of events while living truth textbooks would never print. But something had changed. Marine Corps had offered her a contract position. Civilian instructor at Quantico, teaching precision shooting to young Marines. Part of her wanted to refuse, stay invisible, protect Ainsley from a world that had already tried to kill her once. But another part, the part that sounded like Thaddeus, said some things were worth the risk. She took the job. First class was skeptical. 30 Marines, fresh from basic, looking at a 28-year-old woman in civilian clothes and wondering what the hell she could teach them. She didn't say anything, just led them to the range, set up a target at 2,000 yards, explained every calculation as she worked through it. Wind, distance, Coriolis effect, temperature, humidity, all processed without computers or apps or technology. Just math and observation and knowledge that came from 15 years training with a man who'd understood excellence was built from thousands of small decisions done right. Then she shot, dead center. The metallic clang echoed across the range like a bell announcing truth. Skepticism evaporated, replaced by attention, respect, hunger to learn from someone who'd proven themselves in the only language that mattered to warriors. 6 months later, she stood in her office at Quantico. Small, Spartan, but hers. On the wall hung a photo of Thaddeus in Afghanistan. Young, intense, holding a rifle like it was an extension of his soul. Next to it, the bullet casing from his record shot, the 25 20-yard shot that had become legend, that had become the key to finding truth buried in North Carolina soil. And beside that, her own casing from the 2,400-yard shot that broke a 10-year record and started a war she was still fighting. Phone buzzed. Text from Bridge. Just checking in. Weekly ritual. She texted back. All good. Teaching. Bridge's response came immediately. He'd be proud. Another text. This one from Sterling. Saw news. Congressional committee investigating contractor fraud. Sentinels on the list. Kira smiled. The wheels were turning. Slowly, but turning. Investigations that had nothing to do with buried hard drives or dead operatives. Just routine oversight that happened to be looking in the right direction. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually someone would dig deep enough, ask the right questions, connect the right dots. And when they did, the hard drive in its triple lock safe would be waiting. Through her office window, the next class was assembling on the range. Young faces she'd come to know over the past months. Some would become exceptional shooters. Others would struggle. All of them would leave understanding that precision wasn't about talent, it was about patience. Her father's lesson passed forward. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but something made her look. Single photograph, no message. Victor Remington leaving what looked like the Senate building, surrounded by men in suits, his face composed, confident, but there was something in his eyes, something that might have been worry. The photo disappeared as soon as she'd seen it, self-destructing, leaving no trace. Message from someone, Sterling, maybe, or Bridge, or someone else entirely. Reminder that the game continued, that Victor was being watched just as they were being watched, that the balance held, precarious, dangerous, but held. That evening, Kira drove home to the small house she rented in Richmond. Ainsley was in the kitchen, homework spread across the table, earbuds in, tapping a pencil to music Kira couldn't hear. She looked up when her sister entered, pulled out one earbud. How was work? Good. Taught some Marines that impossible is just math they haven't learned yet. Ainsley rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. You sound like Dad. The words hit harder than expected. Kira felt tears sting her eyes, blinked them away. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. Ainsley went back to homework, then paused, looked up again. Kira, can I ask you something? Always. Why do you do it? Teaching, shooting, all of it. You could just, I don't know, live a normal life. Not work so hard, not worry so much. Kira sat across from her sister, looked at this person she'd helped raise. This bright, beautiful girl who wanted to save animals and believed the world was fundamentally good. Because some battles choose you, she said quietly, and some people are worth remembering. Like Dad? Like Dad. Ainsley considered this, nodded, went back to homework. Kira stood, walked to the window, looked out at the quiet street. Normal suburban evening. Kids playing basketball, someone walking a dog. Life continuing like it always did, oblivious to the wars fought in shadows. She deleted the photo notification, made dinner, did dishes, lived the normal life that sat on top of truth like ice on dark water. 2 years passed. The waiting became routine. The fear became background noise. Kira's reputation at Quantico grew. The woman who'd broken a SEAL record, Phantom's daughter. Marines trained under her became some of the best shooters in the Corps. Officers noticed. Generals noticed. Awards came. But none of it mattered as much as the weekly texts. All good. 3 words. Every week. 2 years of confirmation that the cage held. That Victor honored the arrangement because the alternative was worse. Ainsley turned 17. Started looking at colleges. Talked about veterinary programs like they were distant dreams that might actually come true. Sterling sent photos from his fishing trips. Bridge got promoted to senior instructor. Life, somehow, moved forward. Then one Tuesday morning, everything shifted. Sterling's voice on the phone, tight with controlled urgency. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Kira grabbed the remote. Cable news filled the screen. Breaking. Investigative journalist Paige Morrison hospitalized after car accident. Authorities investigating possible foul play. The camera cut to footage of a mangled vehicle. Airbags deployed, glass scattered across a Washington, D.C. street. She's alive, Sterling said. Barely, but she's talking. FBI's involved now. Morrison was investigating defense contractor fraud. Had been for 6 months. Started asking questions about Sentinel Global. Victor? Moved first. Violated the spirit of our agreement, if not the letter. She survived, Kira. She's in protective custody and she's sharing everything she's found. Kira's heart hammered. What does that mean for us? It means the cage just opened. FBI's connecting dots. Morrison's research led them to Operation Anaconda. They're asking about a 6-man recon team in 2002. What they found. What happened after. Bridges' voice came over the speaker. He was with Sterling. FBI wants to talk to us. About Afghanistan. About your father. About the evidence. What do? We give them everything, Sterling said. Time for secrets to end. What about our agreement? Victor tried to kill a journalist, Bridge cut in. He moved first. We're free to act. And even without our evidence, FBI has enough to prosecute. Our hard drives just make the case airtight. Kira thought about Ainsley. About 2 years of looking over her shoulder. About wondering every day if today was the day Victor decided the cage wasn't worth it. Let's do it. There's something else, Sterling said. Fort Bragg, that safety deposit box Bridge mentioned in the forest. We should check if it's real, if your father actually set up a backup. 24 hours later, they stood at the Special Operations Memorial at Fort Bragg. The flagpole rose from a stone foundation. Names of fallen operators carved around the base. Cassian Hawthorne's name was there. Bridge ran his fingers over the letters, stood silent for a long moment. Then he knelt, examined the foundation. 3rd stone from the left. Loose. He pried it up. A small, waterproof container lay underneath. Military spec. The same kind Thaddeus had used. Bridge opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a key, and a note in Thaddeus's handwriting. If you're reading this, everything went according to plan. The box contains copies. Insurance. Use wisely. Some truths take decades. Phantom. Bridge stared at the note, then at the key. He really did have backups, he whispered. We weren't bluffing. Kira felt something break loose in her chest. Her father planning this 22 years ago, knowing he might not live to see justice, but preparing anyway, ensuring truth would survive even if he didn't. They went to the bank. Safety deposit box 347. The key fit perfectly. Inside, 3 hard drives, each labeled with a date and location. Backups of backups. Redundancy ensuring no single point of failure. Also, an envelope addressed to Kira in her father's handwriting. She opened it with shaking hands. Kira, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you've found your way through the darkness I tried to shield you from. I'm sorry. Sorry for leaving you with this burden. Sorry for secrets kept. Sorry for not being there to help you carry the weight. But I'm not sorry for what we found, what we tried to protect. Some truths are worth dying for, worth waiting decades to expose. You have strength I never had, courage your old man only pretended at. You'll finish this. I know you will. The evidence in these drives will bring down an empire built on blood, will give families closure, will ensure Cassian and Ronan and Callum and Dorian didn't die for nothing. Use it when the time is right. You'll know when. I love you more than words can say, more than the stars in the sky. You made every day worth living, every sacrifice worth making. Be brave, be patient, be precise. Always, Dad. Kira read it twice, folded it carefully, placed it back in the envelope. Bridge watched, understanding in his eyes. He knew, Bridge said quietly, knew exactly how this would play out, knew we'd need backups, knew you'd be the one to finish it. He believed in her, Sterling added, his voice thick, more than she believed in herself. Kira looked at the hard drives, at evidence that would destroy Victor Remington, end Sentinel Global, expose the corruption that had killed good men and prolonged a war for profit. FBI, she said, we give them everything today. The federal building in Washington, D.C. felt like a fortress. Conference room with agents and prosecutors and stenographers, official statements recorded, evidence cataloged, hard drives examined. The senior prosecutor, a woman named Elizabeth Grayson, looked at the material with something like awe. This is, without exaggeration, the most comprehensive evidence of defense contractor fraud I've ever seen, she said. Names, dates, transactions, communications, everything needed to prosecute. She looked at Kira. Your father was meticulous. This isn't just evidence, it's a roadmap. Every connection documented, every dollar traced. Will it be enough? Enough? Grayson's expression hardened. Miss Davenport, this is enough to bring down everyone involved. Not just Victor Remington, his board, his executives, Pentagon officials who enabled it, senators who looked the other way. She paused. This is going to shake foundations. People are going to prison. Careers are going to end. And families are finally going to get the truth they deserved 20 years ago. How long? Investigation will take months, building the case, gathering additional evidence, interviewing witnesses. But with this as foundation, Grayson allowed herself a small smile. We'll have indictments within 6 months, trials within a year. She leaned forward. You need to understand, once we file charges, you'll be public. Your names will be everywhere. Media, press conferences, testimony. You'll become the face of this. Kira looked at Sterling and Bridge, saw the same determination reflected back. We're ready. One more thing, Grayson said. Victor Remington is still free. Dangerous. Once he realizes what's happening, he'll either run or fight. We can offer protective custody, safe house, guards. No, Kira said. We've been living with targets on our backs for 2 years. We'll manage. Grayson studied her, then nodded. Your father would be proud. They left the federal building just as the sun was setting. Long shadows stretched across monuments and government buildings where decisions were made that shaped the world. Bridges' phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Clever, Victor's voice. Calm, almost amused. Very clever. I underestimated you. Won't make that mistake again. It's over, Victor, Bridge said. FBI has everything. You can run, but you won't get far. Over? Victor laughed, the sound like breaking glass. My dear Bridge, it's just beginning. You think evidence matters? I have senators, judges, people who owe me more than you can imagine. Had, Kira said. Past tense. They'll abandon you the moment the indictments come. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. Silence on the line. Then Victor's voice, colder now. Phantom's daughter. You really are his child. Same naive belief in justice. Same faith in the system. He died with that faith. You will too. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You threw away my offer of peace, so now we do this the other way. Scorched earth. If I burn, everyone burns with me, including yourself. I'm 69 years old, rich beyond measure. I've lived 10 lifetimes. What's prison to me? A few years in minimum security, then early release for health reasons. I'll outlive this. You won't. Kira's voice cut through like a blade. Because we're not just giving the FBI evidence of fraud, we're giving them evidence of murder. Cassian, Ronan, Callum, Dorian, my father. 5 men killed to protect your profits. That's not white-collar crime, Victor. That's capital murder. Multiple counts. Victor's breathing changed. First sign of real emotion. You can't prove that. We can. Emails discussing removing problems. Wire transfers to offshore accounts linked to the contractors who killed them. Phone records, travel records. A paper trail you thought was buried. She paused. My father documented everything, not just the fraud, everything. You're not going to minimum security, Victor. You're going to Supermax, and you'll die there. The line went dead. Sterling looked at Kira, concern etched in his weathered face. That was dangerous. You just backed a wounded animal into a corner. Good, Kira said. Let him know we're not afraid. Let him make mistakes. He will, Bridge said quietly. Question is, what mistakes and who pays for them? The answer came 2 days later. Kira was teaching at Quantico. Range drills. Routine day. A black SUV pulled up. Men in suits. Federal agents. The senior agent approached, his face grim. Miss Davenport, need you to come with us. There's been an incident. Her heart dropped. Ainsley. Your sister is fine, safe. We have her in protective custody. But there was an attempt. Men tried to grab her outside school. Our surveillance team intervened. Suspects fled. The world tilted. Victor, moving against Ainsley because he couldn't reach Kira directly. Where is she? Safe house. 20 minutes from here. Kira rode in silence, hands clenched, mind racing through scenarios. Through what could have happened if the agents hadn't been there. Ainsley was in the living room when Kira arrived. A federal agent sitting with her. Her sister looked small, scared, 17 years old and caught in a war she didn't understand. Kira hugged her tight. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. What's happening? Those men, they tried to grab me, said they had a message for you. What message? The agent answered. One of the suspects yelled before fleeing, Tell Phantom's daughter the price of truth. Then they disappeared. Did you catch them? Lost them in traffic. Professional team, multiple vehicles, well coordinated. The agent's expression darkened. But we found something. A phone left behind. Burner, single message, an address, a time, tonight, 8 p.m. It's a trap, Sterling said. He and Bridge had arrived within the hour. Obviously, the agent said, but also an invitation. Victor wants to talk. Kira looked at the address. Warehouse District, Alexandria, Virginia. Industrial area. Isolated. I'll go. Absolutely not, the agent protested. We can send a team, negotiate on your behalf. He won't talk to a team. He'll talk to me, because this is personal, now. Sterling and Bridge insisted on coming. No negotiation. The agent finally relented. We wire you up. Surveillance team outside, snipers on rooftops, SWAT on standby. First sign of trouble, we move in. Fine, but give us space. Let the conversation play out. We might get a confession, or you might get yourselves killed. That too. 8 p.m. The warehouse loomed in darkness, a single light over the entrance, otherwise empty, silent. Kira wore the wire under her jacket. Sterling and Bridge flanked her, all armed, all knowing this could be the end. They entered. The warehouse was vast, open space, boxes stacked along walls, catwalks overhead. A single figure stood in the center under a hanging light. Victor Remington, 69 years old, $3.4 billion, CEO of an empire built on blood. He looked tired, older than 2 years ago, the weight of a crumbling world visible in his slumped shoulders. "You came," he said. "Wasn't sure you would. You threatened my sister. Of course I came." "Threatened?" Victor's laugh was hollow. "My dear, I saved her. Those men weren't mine. Freelancers, people who know indictments are coming, who want to eliminate loose ends before the ship sinks completely." Kira studied his face, looking for the lie. Didn't find one. "You expect me to believe you're protecting us? I expect you to believe I'm protecting myself. You die, you become martyrs. Evidence gets released immediately. Media firestorm. I'm destroyed overnight." He walked closer, hands visible and empty. "You alive and testifying? That I can manage. Lawyers, delays, appeals, reasonable doubt. The system I've spent decades learning to manipulate. So why this meeting? Because I want you to understand something about your father, about what really happened." Sterling stepped forward. "We know what happened. You murdered him." "I gave the order, yes, but not for the reason you think." Victor looked at Kira, something almost like regret in his eyes. "Your father contacted me, January 2019, said he wanted to make a deal. He'd destroy the evidence in exchange for money, not for himself, for you." "Liar." "Am I?" Victor pulled out his phone, showed an email. From T. Davenport, subject, arrangement. "I'm dying, don't have long, want to make a deal. Evidence for money, enough to secure my daughter's futures. They've suffered enough for my principles." Kira read it again. The handwriting looked right. The email address matched. "He was dying," Victor continued softly. "Heart condition. Doctors gave him a year, maybe 2. He knew he wouldn't live to see you financially stable, wouldn't live to see Ainsley through college. So he came to me. And you refused. I told him I'd only deal if he testified the evidence was fabricated, that he'd made it all up. A dying man's delusion." Victor's voice carried something that might have been regret. "And he refused. Said he wouldn't die a liar, wouldn't tarnish the memory of the brothers who died for truth." The warehouse fell silent. "So I made a decision," Victor said. "Remove the problem before he changed his mind, before he decided principles mattered more than your future." He met Kira's eyes. "I didn't murder your father because he threatened me. I murdered him because he was too good, too principled, too dangerous precisely because he couldn't be bought." Kira felt tears on her cheeks, didn't wipe them away. "You're still a murderer." "Yes, and I'll pay for it." Victor gestured around the warehouse. "In 30 minutes, federal agents will storm this building. They'll arrest me. Tomorrow, I'll be in a courtroom facing charges." "You're surrendering?" "I'm accepting the inevitable. Can't run, can't win, can only control how I lose." He looked at each of them. "I killed good men. I prolonged a war for profit. I corrupted everything I touched. Your testimony will ensure I die in prison. So why admit it? Why tell us this?" Victor's expression hardened. "Because I want you to understand something your father understood. Something you'll learn too late. The system doesn't care about truth. It cares about order. I'll be convicted, yes, but the people above me, senators who approve the contracts, generals who look the other way, Pentagon officials who enabled everything," he smiled bitterly, "they'll walk, retire quietly, move to the private sector, give speeches, write books, and the world will keep spinning because the system protects itself, always has, always will." "You're wrong," Kira said. Am I? Victor turned to leave. Watch. You'll see. You'll testify. You'll tell the truth. You'll think you've won, and then nothing will change. A new company will replace Sentinel. New contractors will find new wars, new profits. He stopped at the door. Your father knew this. That's why he was dying inside long before his body failed. Because he understood. Truth is a luxury. Justice is a myth. And good men die while bad men prosper. Victor looked back one last time. Prove me wrong. Please, for your father's sake, prove me wrong. Then federal agents burst in, guns drawn, shouting commands. Victor knelt, hands behind his head, surrendering peacefully. As they cuffed him, he met Kira's eyes one last time. Then they took him away. And Kira stood in the empty warehouse, Sterling's hand on her shoulder, wondering if everything they'd fought for would matter in the end. Don't listen to him, Sterling said quietly. He's wrong. Is he? Has to be, because the alternative is unbearable. 4 months later, the Senate hearing room was packed. Cameras everywhere, reporters, senators, the public gallery filled with families, people who'd lost loved ones to wars prolonged for profit. Kira sat at the witness table, Sterling on her left, Bridge on her right. Behind them, Daniel Hawthorne, Bridge's father, white-haired and weathered. Ronan Webb's widow, gray-haired with eyes that had cried every tear. Callum York's children, Emma and Jack, grown now, in their 40s. Dorian Cross's sister, 70 years old, the last of her family. All of them here, finally, after decades. The senator from the Armed Services Committee leaned forward. Miss Davenport, can you confirm that Sentinel Global Security engaged in fraudulent contracts between 2002 and 2008? Yes, Senator. $847 million documented. And these contracts involved what specifically? Weapons sales to Taliban fighters while simultaneously holding security contracts with the United States government. Opium trafficking. Systematic prolonging of combat operations for profit. The gallery murmured. How do you know this? My father, Colonel Thaddeus Davenport, and 5 operators discovered the evidence during Operation Anaconda in March 2002. They documented everything. Kira's voice remained steady. And they were murdered for it. Specialist Cassian Hawthorne, Staff Sergeant Ronan Webb, Corporal Callum York, Specialist Dorian Cross, my father, Colonel Thaddeus Davenport, all killed to protect profits. She looked directly at the cameras. They died because they refused to stay silent, because they believed truth mattered more than money. The senator sat back. Victor Remington is currently in federal custody? Yes, awaiting trial on 47 counts, including 5 counts of capital murder. The gallery erupted. The chairman banged his gavel. After order was restored, Daniel Hawthorne stood. My son Cassian was 22, he said, his voice breaking. Wanted to be a teacher, believed in serving his country. 22 years I've waited for this truth. Thank you. Thank you for not forgetting. Ronan Webb's widow spoke next. Ronan came home different, haunted. 3 months later, he was dead. Now I know why, and knowing helps. Callum York's daughter Emma approached the microphone. I was 7 when my dad died. We were told he was a hero. Now I know he really was, just not the way they told us. He died fighting for truth. Dorian Cross's sister was last. My brother was murdered for doing the right thing. You want to honor them? Don't just convict Victor Remington. Convict everyone involved. Everyone who enabled this. Everyone who profited while soldiers died. The room fell silent. The chairman spoke. We will. I give you my word. This investigation will follow the evidence wherever it leads, no matter how high. Outside the courthouse, families gathered. Daniel Hawthorne hugged Bridge. Ronan's widow embraced Sterling. Callum's children thanked Kira. They stood as the sun set over Washington, watching justice, delayed, difficult, incomplete, finally begin. "What now?" Bridge asked. "Now we live," Sterling said. "Finally." 3 months later, Arlington National Cemetery. 6 headstones, finally marked properly. Colonel Thaddeus Phantom Davenport, U.S. Army Special Forces, 1951 to 2019. Some truths are worth the wait. Specialist Cassian Hawthorne, U.S. Army, 1980 to 2002. Staff Sergeant Ronan Webb, U.S. Army, 1975 to 2004. Corporal Callum York, U.S. Army, 1973 to 2005. Specialist Dorian Cross, U.S. Army, 1978 to 2007. Sergeant Major Sterling Garrison, U.S. Army, 1953. Sterling had insisted on the pre-placed stone. Might as well get it ready. Beneath all 6, an inscription. Operation Anaconda, 2002. They found the truth. They protected it. They waited for justice. Some wars take decades. Kira placed flowers. Ainsley stood beside her, 18 now, headed to college in the fall. "They won, didn't they?" Ainsley asked. Kira thought about Victor in prison awaiting trial, about the investigation spreading through the Pentagon, about the system, slowly and painfully, holding people accountable. "Yes," she said, "they won." Bridge appeared, stood beside them. "Your father would say it wasn't about winning," he said quietly. "No," Kira agreed. "It was about refusing to lose, about refusing to forget." They stood in silence as wind moved through the trees, carrying truth forward. 1 week later, Quantico. A new class of Marines assembled on the range. 30 faces Kira didn't know yet. 30 lives she'd shape. She grabbed her rifle case, the Remington 700 that had belonged to Thaddeus, and walked onto the range. The Marines fell silent, watching. "Good morning, Marines. I'm Kira Davenport. My father was Colonel Thaddeus Davenport, call sign Phantom. March 2002, Afghanistan, he made a 25 20-yard combat shot. No computer, no spotter, just skill, patience, and understanding." She paused. "Today I'm going to teach you how to do what you think is impossible, because impossible is just a word people use when they don't understand the math." A young Marine raised his hand, fresh tattoo, Semper Fi, on his forearm. "Ma'am, what's the most important thing about being a sniper?" Kira thought about her father, about Sterling and Bridge, about Cassian and Ronan and Callum and Dorian, about all the men who died believing some things were worth more than survival. "Patience," she said, "and precision. Understanding that every shot is a conversation between you and physics, between intention and reality." She looked across the range at targets set at impossible distances. "My father taught me that invisible forces shape everything. Wind, gravity, time. You can't see them, but you can learn to predict them, respect them, use them." She gestured to the rifle. "Today we start with fundamentals. By the time you leave this course, you'll understand that excellence isn't about natural talent. It's about thousands of small decisions, done right, every single time." The Marines settled into position, eager, ready, and Kira began teaching, passing on knowledge earned in blood and darkness, a legacy her father built, truth he died protecting. The lesson would continue for years to come, for generations, because some truths refuse to die, some legacies transcend one life, and some daughters honor their fathers not with tears, but with action, not with grief, but with teaching, not with endings, but with continuation.